Assemblywoman Christy Smith, who is the Democratic candidate for Congress in the 25th District. So, Assemblywoman, legendary House Speaker Thomas P. Tip O'Neill once said, all politics is local. But he didn't live in the era of Donald Trump. So regardless of all the issues that you're debating with your opponent, how much of this race simply comes down to whether you are for President Trump or against him?
That's a great question, Conan. I will say that without a doubt, my local voters, not only are they persistent, we have really high turnout across all of California's 25th, but they're multidimensional voters. So, of course, they're looking at the national dynamic. Overwhelmingly, all polling that we've seen indicates that the vice president is comfortably ahead here, but we don't take that for granted. And then as that relates to my race, look, we know that our voters tend to prefer candidates who have been invested in the local community, as I have for an elected official for the last 11 years, and have a proven track record of results in delivering for the communities that I serve. So I think our voters are prepared. As we know, there aren't very many of them left who are undecided, so we feel good about the position we're in.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi suggested the president simply wants a COVID relief bill to send people checks with his name on it. But should that delay help to those who need it? Should she cut a deal with the White House now?
Absolutely. And having spoken to Speaker Pelosi about the deal that they are trying to manage, she really understands the importance of making sure that we get this to the street level, that the support has to come in a package that includes support for local governments and service agencies who are suffering during the time of this pandemic. Given what I've seen with my families in my community that are suffering, I know that this is help and support that needs to go out before the end of this year. I can't imagine some of the families that we're working with having to get through the end of this last quarter of the year without some significant financial support.
So you were criticized by your opponent for your vote in favor of Assembly Bill 5, which took away essentially the freelance economy in the state, which is now the subject of a ballot measure regarding Uber and Lyft drivers. On the one hand, the argument is you wanted workers to get basic rights, minimum wage, sick leave. But to others, this simply was about organized labor wanting to unionize drivers. What do you say to voters who see your vote as a top-down intrusion on the freedom of people to decide how they work?
For the vast majority of our voters, this isn't even an issue or a consideration for them because they want fairness in the system. And it's critical to remember that AB 5 was a legislative response to the April of 2018 California Supreme Court decision in the Dynamex case, which in that ruling reset how we determine what classification of labor looks like in the state. So at the time that AB 5 was passed, the California Chamber of Commerce, all of my local chambers of commerce had taken a neutral position because they knew that this measure was so important to protecting small businesses across California and those in kind of business relationships where pay is very different, for instance, commission-based sales or nail salons, barbershops, those kind of businesses. And so we worked really diligently in AB 5, which was just a first pass, to make sure that that Dynamex court case didn't disrupt our economy at every level. Now, subsequently, I've been proud to be the co-author of 2 measures that additionally went in and added more clarification to the initial AB 5. I have no doubt that in the next legislative session, there may be more repairs, but we're talking about, again, a Supreme Court case that completely rewrote California labor law. And so the legislative response was really about protecting both business and our workers.
So what are voters talking about in your district?
You know, I think it's a couple of things. First and foremost, I think voters want to be electing leaders right now who put recovering from this COVID crisis as their top priority, both in terms of getting America healthy again, and then what we're going to do to stand up the economy again. And then when it comes to the full gambit of issues that we tend to litigate election cycle after election cycle, there is a pretty vast difference between myself and my opponent. I happen to be really committed to changing our climate policy in a way that addresses climate change, to protecting individual rights of people, whether that's workers' rights, rights based on racial affiliation, women's right to choose. And I have an opponent who's kind of decades behind when it comes to all of that. So with the potential of changing a Supreme Court that literally the first act that they might take would be to strip away people's health care rights and then other rights that subsequently will follow, I think you can count on my district to be behind the candidate who stands for making sure that these protections that we've built in don't get taken away.
So you lost to Mike Garcia in the special election earlier this year. I'm assuming you believe this is a much larger and a very different electorate this time.
According to PDI, we've already achieved the number of votes that I had in the special election just with early voting and people either dropping their ballot off at a mailbox or at one of the county polling boxes. So we are in a really fantastic position. We know that turnout here in CA-25 is really enthusiastic, just like it is all over California and the country. So we know we're in a good spot heading into official election day.
Assemblywoman Christy Smith, Democrat for Congress in the 25th District of Northern LA County, parts of Ventura County. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, Conan.